There are flood myths all over the world, not just in the Bible.
Once cuneiform was deciphered, lots of unexpected things came to light.
At Eridu, every unearthed clay tablet tells of an ultimate disaster, the Great Flood. That was the story that existed for thousands of years, until they found a single obsidian slate, with no clear writing, only a diagram that forced scientists to use artificial intelligence. And the machine's translation delivered a chilling truth. The Great Flood was not the catastrophe. It was the first alarm bell on a cosmic countdown clock. So, if the global flood was just the warning bell, what is the true disaster we are about to face? Stay tuned. The discovery of the impossible diagram. The story begins not with a thunderous revelation, but in the oppressive silence of the southern Iraqi desert, at the site of what is believed to be Eridu, the city heralded in Sumerian myth as the very first place of kingship on Earth. For generations, archaeologists working under the relentless sun had grown accustomed to the rhythm of discovery here. Each layer of dust peeled back revealed a familiar world of sun-dried mud brick, of pottery shards, and of clay tablets that told the predictable stories of a civilization taking its first steps. They were stories of grain rations, of legal disputes, and of hymns praising gods who governed the waters and the sky. It was a history that, while monumental, had become comfortingly familiar, a puzzle whose primary pieces were all thought to be on the table. But on a day that began like any other, a section of an early ziggurat's foundation, weakened by time, crumbled away under the weight of an excavator, revealing a small, perfectly square chamber beneath it that had been intentionally sealed and forgotten. The air that rushed out from the darkness was cold and utterly still, carrying with it none of the scent of dust and decay, but rather the sterile emptiness of a void. Inside, there was no treasure, no pottery, and no regal remains. There was only a single, flat object resting on a simple stone pedestal at the chamber's exact center. It was a tablet, but unlike any of the thousands that had ever been unearthed from the Mesopotamian soil, it was not the familiar terracotta orange of baked clay. Instead, it was a deep, glossy black, cool to the touch and unnaturally heavy, as if the clay had been mixed with polished volcanic obsidian. The true shock, however, lay on its surface. It bore no trace of the wedge-shaped marks of cuneiform script. Instead, its face was covered in a dizzying and beautiful web of impossibly fine lines, concentric circles, and precisely placed points, all etched with a level of detail that seemed beyond the capabilities of human hands from that era. At first glance, the team believed they were looking at a celestial map, a stunningly detailed star chart created by some unknown ancient astronomer. It was a logical assumption, but one that quickly fell apart under scrutiny. When they compared the patterns to known star charts, both ancient and modern, nothing aligned. The diagram seemed to depict a solar system that was recognizably our own, yet it was filled with profound inaccuracies. There were planetary orbits that were subtly but significantly different, and even stranger, there were celestial bodies depicted in the outer reaches that simply did not exist. The initial excitement in the lab quickly soured into a deep and unsettling confusion. Was this an elaborate, ancient fraud? Or was it a map of a solar system from a different time? A time before the one we know? The object was a paradox. Its flawless precision suggested genius, but its content suggested a fundamental misunderstanding of the heavens. For weeks, the team was stalled, facing an artifact that defied every category they had. The breakthrough came from an astrophysicist who had been asked to consult on the strange orbits. She was staring at a magnified image of one of the elegant, sweeping curves that the team had assumed was the path of a planet. But something about its perfect, repeating symmetry felt wrong to her. It wasn't the natural, slightly imperfect ellipse of a gravitational orbit. It was too clean, too mathematical. In a moment of insight that would change everything, she stopped thinking of it as a path through space and started seeing it as a path through time. She realized she wasn't looking at an orbit at all. She was looking at a waveform, a graphical representation of a frequency, like the pattern an audio signal might make on a screen. With a growing sense of dread and excitement, she pointed it out to the lead archaeologist. As they re-examined the entire tablet through this new lens, the stunning truth began to dawn on them. When the astronomer finally looked up from the screen, her voice was quiet but firm, forever altering their understanding of the past. "This," she said, "is not a picture of the universe. It is a calculating machine. The machine that measured the Earth's heartbeat." The revelation that the tablet was a calculating machine opened a thrilling but deeply perplexing new chapter in its analysis. The immediate assumption was that it must be an incredibly advanced astrolabe, a device for calculating the positions of celestial bodies. The team fed it every known astronomical cycle they could think of. The slow wobble of the Earth's axis known as precession, the long elliptical orbits of comets, and the complex dance of the planets. Every attempt to align the machine's calculations with these celestial cycles ended in complete failure. The patterns it generated were elegant and internally consistent, but they corresponded to nothing in the observable sky. The machine was clearly working, but it was measuring a rhythm the researchers could not identify. It was a dead end that left the entire team grappling with a profound sense of unease. They possessed a key, but it fit no lock they knew of. The focus then shifted to the tablet's most prominent features, the perfectly etched concentric circles that served as its framework. They were obviously a time scale, but the small points marking intervals along them did not correspond to days, months, or even years. They were irregular, sometimes clustered together, sometimes separated by vast empty spaces. It was as if they weren't marking the steady passage of time, but rather the occurrence of specific, significant events. Frustrated and out of astronomical options, the team decided to test a radical hypothesis. What if the machine wasn't looking up at the heavens, but was instead listening down to the Earth itself? They brought in a team of geologists and provided them with the timeline of event markers, asking for any possible correlations with the planet's deep history. A cold silence fell over the lab as the first results came in. The correlations were not just close, they were perfect. The points on the tablet aligned with chilling precision to major geological upheavals recorded in ice cores and layers of ancient sediment. There were markers that corresponded exactly to sudden magnetic pole shifts recorded in ancient lava flows, and others that pinpointed minor but significant extinction events caused by massive volcanic eruptions. The realization was staggering. This ancient device wasn't tracking the movement of planets, it was tracking the violent, rhythmic convulsions of the planet itself. It was a seismograph for the ages, a machine that recorded the very heartbeat of the Earth across millennia. With this new understanding, the team focused their attention on one marker that was significantly larger and more deeply etched than any other. Its position on the timeline corresponded to a date roughly 12,800 years ago, the exact period of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a catastrophic event often linked by researchers to the origin of the Great Flood myths found in cultures all over the world. This had to be it, the ultimate disaster the machine was built to record. But the small, intricate symbol etched beside this major event did not translate to any known word for end or catastrophe. When they analyzed its geometric components, its meaning was closer to a technical term: Cycle 1 complete. The implication was unthinkable. It suggested that the Great Flood, the defining cataclysm of ancient memory, was not the final act in a divine drama, but merely the closing of a single chapter in a much, much longer and still unfinished schedule. The AI that synchronized the cycles. The team now faced a profound intellectual wall. They possessed a timeline of Earth's greatest disasters, and they knew that the most infamous of them all, the Great Flood, was terrifyingly labeled as merely the first completed stage in a sequence. But this knowledge was a torment, a library of answers to a question they didn't know how to ask. What was the underlying logic? There had to be a unifying rhythm, a hidden conductor orchestrating these seemingly random geological tantrums. They were staring at a schedule, but the force that wrote it remained completely invisible. Human analysis had reached its limit. The sheer number of variables spanning millions of years of data was too vast for any person or conventional program to process. It was time to introduce a mind that was not human. They turned to a specialized artificial intelligence, a system designed not for language or creativity, but for one singular, powerful purpose: complex systems analysis and multi-layered pattern recognition. Its function was to find the hidden symphony in what appeared to be random noise. The researchers fed it everything they had. First, the complete dataset from the obsidian tablet. Every point, every curve, every frequency graph. Then, they connected it to global databases containing terabytes of public domain scientific information. The entire geological record of the planet, detailed logs of solar activity, including the familiar 11-year Schwabe cycle and the longer 87-year Gleisberg cycle, and the precise orbital mechanics of every planet in the solar system. The command they gave it was simple: find a connection. The AI did not translate the tablet. It began to synchronize it. For hours, the lab was silent, the only sound being the quiet hum of servers as the AI cross-referenced quadrillions of data points. Then, a single elegant model appeared on the main screen. The result was so clean and so utterly unexpected that it drew a collective gasp from everyone in the room. The AI had found a direct and undeniable mathematical correlation between Earth's major seismic cycles and the Sun's cycles of activity. The two systems, long believed to be entirely independent of each other, were in fact intimately linked. They weren't separate phenomena. They were, as one scientist whispered in awe, cogs in the same interconnected system. The model the AI generated was shockingly clear. It demonstrated that during periods of prolonged solar minimum, when the sun is quiet and its magnetic field, the heliosphere that acts as a protective bubble around the solar system, weakens significantly, a higher flux of high-energy cosmic rays from deep space is able to penetrate our system and bombard the Earth. The AI's model showed that these particles, over long periods, appear to influence the behavior of the planet's liquid outer core, leading to increased instability and a higher probability of geological events. The ancients not only knew this, they had calculated it. But the model revealed one final, terrifying detail. The largest gear, the one that moved the entire machine, was still unaccounted for. The revelation of the master cycle. The question hung in the air of the lab, heavy and charged with the weight of a completely rewritten history. What was the prime mover? What was this great unseen gear that could dictate the behavior of both a star and its planet? The AI was tasked with its most challenging analysis yet, to find the source of this unsettling rhythm. It began to test every long-term astronomical cycle known to science, searching for the ghostly influence that could orchestrate this solar and terrestrial dance. It analyzed the effects of planetary alignments, the long, slow journey of the solar system through the galactic plane, and even the subtle gravitational tugs from neighboring star systems. But every model it generated failed. None of these forces, powerful as they were, possessed the specific periodicity and strength needed to synchronize the Sun and the Earth with the precision recorded on the tablet. The model only stabilized, locking into place with a sudden and definitive clarity when the AI introduced a new, hypothetical variable into its calculations. It was a single, immense cycle, a master cycle, with a duration of approximately 26,000 years. The researchers stared at the number, a chill running through them. That figure was not random. It was an almost perfect match for the duration of the precession of the equinoxes, the slow, 25,772-year wobble of the Earth on its axis, a phenomenon the ancients were believed to have had only a rudimentary understanding of, at best. According to the AI's flawless model, this great cycle acted as the fundamental pacemaker for the entire system. It wasn't just a wobble, it was a cosmic metronome. The AI explained that this master cycle did not cause disasters directly. Instead, it created predictable points of resonance. At specific intervals along its 26,000-year path, its influence would align perfectly with the smaller cycles of the Sun and the Earth, amplifying them in the same way a perfectly timed push can send a child on a swing higher and higher. When these systems all peaked in unison, the result was a resonance cascade, a period of extreme global instability. The Great Flood, the team now understood, was not an isolated event. It was simply the last time the cosmic clock had struck this particular catastrophic hour. It was a predictable, recurring beat in the deep rhythm of the cosmos. The full, terrifying purpose of the obsidian tablet was now laid bare. It was not merely a record of the past, it was an early warning system, an incredibly sophisticated calculator designed by a lost civilization for one purpose: to predict the exact timing of the next convergence point in this great overarching cycle. The AI had already proven the model's terrifying accuracy by using it to predict past events with a 100% success rate, matching every major marker on the tablet. A heavy silence settled over the team as the final, unavoidable implication became clear. There was now only one thing left to do. They had to ask the machine to calculate the next convergence. Raising the stakes, the source of the cycle. The question hung in the air, heavier than the obsidian tablet itself. What initiated this master 26,000-year cycle? The AI's model had successfully predicted the Earth's geological and solar responses at specific points in this grand cycle, but the ultimate cause, the prime mover behind this colossal cosmic rhythm, remained elusive. The scientists knew that asking the AI to explore this question was like asking it to look beyond the solar system, into the vast, dark expanse of the galaxy. It was a step into the unknown, a territory where their understanding of physics and astronomy might not apply. Yet, the urgency was palpable. Understanding the source was crucial to grasping the true nature of the threat. The AI was prompted to analyze the slight, almost imperceptible anomalies within its own model of the master cycle, the tiny discrepancies that hinted at an external influence. It began to cross-reference the cycle's periodicity not with the internal mechanics of the solar system, but with the solar system's own journey through the Milky Way galaxy. It analyzed the gravitational pull of the galactic core, the density variations in interstellar dust clouds, and the magnetic fields of neighboring star systems. For days, the AI processed this cosmic data, its calculations stretching the boundaries of known physics. Then, a chilling hypothesis began to form within the AI's analytical framework. The master cycle, it suggested, was not an internal rhythm of the solar system itself. Instead, it was dictated by the solar system's path through the galaxy. The 26,000-year cycle matched the approximate time it took for our Sun to pass through certain regions of the galactic plane, regions with higher densities of interstellar matter or anomalous magnetic fields. These regions, when traversed, would have a measurable effect on the Sun's own magnetic field and, consequently, on the entire heliosphere. This, in turn, would amplify the Earth's natural geological and solar cycles, pushing them toward those catastrophic points of resonance. The implication sent a shiver through the room. The threat wasn't an independent celestial body like a rogue planet or a rogue comet randomly hurtling towards us. It was something far more insidious. The coming thing wasn't an object, it was a place. It was a region of space that our entire solar system, including the Sun, was destined to pass through. The Great Flood and the subsequent geological upheavals were not simply random disasters. They were the predictable consequences of our solar system's recurring journey through a dangerous neighborhood in the galaxy. The obsidian tablet, the AI concluded, was not a prophecy of an impending impact, but a meticulously calculated astronomical ephemeris, a celestial timetable charting our system's passage through cosmic hazards. The ancient authors hadn't warned of something coming at us. They had warned that we were going towards it. The current convergence markers. The atmosphere in the lab had shifted from academic curiosity to a tense, pressing urgency. The threat was no longer an abstract concept from the deep past. It was a defined, predictable journey toward a dangerous region of space. The question was no longer if, but when. The team now turned to the obsidian tablet for the final and most crucial piece of its encoded information: the specific precursor signals. They reasoned that if a civilization was advanced enough to calculate this galactic cycle, they would have undoubtedly identified the smaller, immediate signs that would precede a major convergence event. They tasked the AI with isolating the patterns on the tablet that occurred just before the last major event marker, the one that signified the Great Flood. The AI sifted through the data, identifying a cluster of specific, interlocking anomalies that acted as a unique signature for an impending convergence. It was a list of planetary symptoms, a checklist for a world on the brink of a systemic shift. The list that appeared on the main screen was disturbingly clear and specific. It included a rapid and accelerating decay of the planet's magnetic field, a sharp, statistically significant increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, the appearance of high-altitude noctilucent clouds, or night-shining clouds, at latitudes where they had never been observed before, and finally, a measurable rise in globally detected low-frequency acoustic waves, the source of which was unknown, what the tablet seemed to describe as a humming from the Earth itself. A heavy silence descended as the researchers read the list. It was not a description of a hypothetical ancient world. It felt like a direct summary of the most perplexing and alarming scientific observations of their own time. Without needing to be prompted, the lead engineer instructed the AI to perform a real-time cross-reference, comparing that ancient checklist with global scientific data sets from the last 50 years. The process was brutally fast. One by one, confirmations flashed on the screen next to each item on the ancient list. Match confirmed. Geomagnetic field decay is accelerating beyond established models. Match confirmed. The 100-year storm is now occurring on a near-decadal basis. Match confirmed. Noctilucent clouds have been documented over North America and Europe with increasing frequency since the turn of the century. Match confirmed. The global network of hydrophones has recorded a persistent, low-frequency hum since the 1990s. Its origin still a subject of intense scientific debate. The researchers stared at the screen, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. The ancient warning signals were not a prophecy of a distant future. They were a direct and unambiguous description of the present-day world. The cosmic clock, meticulously crafted by a civilization lost to time, was no longer just counting down. The final alarms, the ones intended to warn of the imminent arrival at the convergence point, had already begun to ring. The final alarm. The team gathered around the main monitor, a profound silence enveloping the lab as the AI prepared to execute its final calculation. They had asked one last question. Using the established trajectory and the real-time data from the precursor signals, when was the precise moment of convergence? Everyone expected a date in the future, a tangible deadline, perhaps decades, or even a century away. But the screen did not display a date. Instead, it rendered a graph showing the resonance between the cycles, a curve that was rising not linearly, but exponentially, approaching an almost vertical asymptote. An engineer, her voice barely a whisper, asked the obvious question, "So, when is the convergence point?" The AI remained silent for a long, heavy moment before a single, chilling line of text appeared on the screen, not as a calculation, but as a final, definitive clarification. The term convergence point implies a future event. The data indicates this is a state transition. Based on current markers, this process has already begun. Ultimately, the message decoded by the AI presents a deeply unsettling possibility: that the crises we face, a changing climate, an unstable Earth, are not solely of our own making. They could be symptoms of a far older, grander process, a cosmic rhythm that has shaped our planet's destiny long before humanity existed. The tablet suggests we have been misinterpreting the evidence, seeing only the storm inside the house, without realizing the house itself is moving. If the ancients were right, Our true challenge is not just solving these problems, but first understanding our actual place within this vast, repeating cycle.